everybody. I got a few questions that Heli sent me before this talk, and I have to say that I come from my own background and my own point of view and my own experience, so I can't answer everything. I am not, the all industry, all market expert of everything. So I will try to answer at least on what I know or people that I worked with in my experience over the last 10 years, which is more focused on digital marketing, marketing automation, and email. But I worked also with SEO people, designers, writers, PPC people. So I know a lot about these things, but I don't know everything. So I already know that some people ask questions that I cannot answer, and I'm sorry, but I will try to do my best. And we want to talk about digital marketing jobs in Israel, whether if you are thinking of joining a marketing role or you already have some marketing experience and you want to use this in Israeli market. So a little bit about me. I still have to admit people, but I see I can do it, so it's okay. I'm married with 2 kids. I'm 36 and a half. I have overall 10 years experience in digital marketing, mostly in marketing automation and email marketing, but as I said, also social media, PPC, product marketing as well. I did a lot of these little things. Eventually, I found my way and my sweet spot, which is email marketing and automation. And now I'm a freelancer now, working with different Israeli companies for their email marketing needs. And I'm like most of you, I presume, and people that come to Gvahim when I used to be a mentor as well, a lot of people come from different backgrounds that are not technological or not digital at all. So myself as well, I was in the TV production business, you can say, for 1 year. I was in a boarding school as a counselor. I had other clerks and receptionists and subtitle supervisor jobs. So a lot of different weird backgrounds that doesn't have to do anything with technology or digital marketing at all. But eventually, I found my way. So this is like an inspiration and hope for all of you that doesn't have any relevant experience and you want to go into this field because it's interesting, or because you think it's a good opportunity, or because it's, something that you dream of. It's possible, even if your background is really not related on paper, it's still possible, but it takes some time and dedication. And also my education was not so much related. Like, yes, I took some math and computer science and physics in high school, but it's like high school level. In university, I was just BA in arts and cinema. So a lot of people in the Israeli market are artists, starving artists who decided to move to high tech because it just makes sense. So it's possible still. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between old marketing and digital marketing, the way you can say the Israeli industry sees it. So the old ways, or the regular ways, are the companies who are doing the TV commercials, the billboards, the newspaper ads, the radio ads. In Israel, usually this is done 90% in Hebrew for Israeli clients. So of course you have subsets of the Arabic sector or the Russian-speaking sector, or but these are very small. And I mean, especially in Israeli culture, the focus is on Hebrew, unless you go to very certain areas of the country. So for these, your background as people who are coming and to do Aliyah outside of Israel is not so relevant. You have to know the culture and the language and all the idioms and all the history and all these little shticks in order to go inside this industry, which is the old school industry. And yeah, there is business, there is money, people work there, but also it's much more old school, demanding, hours, crazy people like madmen, It's less of a lifestyle that I recommend to people from experience of my wife working and her friends and other people that worked in the old school industry, is much more stressful and crazy, and the budgets are smaller, and yeah, it's not international. The digital marketing, the new way, that's part of the startup nation, has much more opportunities because it's international, of course, not just English speaking countries. Israeli companies, they market to Europe, to South America. My kids are trying to go inside the room. The end to China. Maybe you see somebody dancing on the bed. Okay. Yes. So all these markets are a possibility when you go into the startup nation dream, and it's marketed in the same way outside. And I know it's a little bit exaggerated the way it's marketed outside, but yes, there is a lot more opportunities, and of course, doesn't have to be in Hebrew speaking when you go into these companies. And of course, most of these jobs are around Tel Aviv, Herzliya, Petah Tikva, Ra'anana, all the central of Israel, where you find these companies are located. Now, as far as I know, a lot of companies are hybrid, so a little bit remote, a little bit office, depends on the culture. But I want to say this because it's really relevant to your rent, the rent you're going to pay. So this is okay. Move on. And the hard truth that I want to say up front, which is just a simple, maybe make sense reality check, that there is no shortage of native English marketers in Israel, because so many people come from United States or Canada or the UK, even South Africa, a little bit Australians. Most of these companies, when they are small or growing, they will want to market to these countries, and they will need native English speakers to market to these countries. But as these companies or all these startups, they're becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and they want to approach more markets and more countries, then you have your advantage of other languages that are not English, because most companies eventually, as they grow, they want to focus on the English. And unfortunately, this is not something that even I can compete with, because I'm not a native English speaker. But the purpose of this talk is to show you where you can join these companies and how you can join these companies, not with native English skills, and still, put a leg in the door and pay and create your future. So where can you compete in the job market without, native English? And since most companies, market to the US or English-speaking countries, mostly the jobs that you should seek are not related to content, right? And content, of course, content writing, but also sometimes these are more like marketing manager, brand manager, everybody that needs to understand also the culture that they're marketing to, in order to find the right copywriting gimmicks, and in order to understand how to address a certain sector of US women that are Afro-American. I cannot do it. You need to know the country, you need to know the culture, you need to know the people. So usually all these roles that have anything to do with content, if it's from the writing perspective or the management perspective, usually they will pick people who are native. But what we can do, and what I did also, is going to a more technical role that doesn't require content writing or cultural background. And for some people, I'm not looking at your faces, but I imagine that for some people, this can sound very, very boring, because marketing should be more about creative stuff and emotions and psychology of the people, and how to persuade and how to encourage and push people to do what you think they should be doing, or what should be beneficial for their purpose and their interests. And, use the emotional, psychological side of marketing. It's much more interesting and it's much more sexy. But in order to go inside the industry, I recommend a technical role It's much faster, in my opinion, and in my experience, also my personal experience, than to try to impersonate somebody that you are not, and also I am not. So, as I said before, bigger companies do market to non-US or non-English speaking countries, and this is where we all can contribute. What can be useful for a junior role in marketing that has nothing to do with marketing, but maybe, very similar? So anything that has to do with economics, understanding business, how it works, what can be done, what cannot be done, measurements, statistics, all this stuff. Programming, of course, public relations, which is like the old school stuff, but will work the same eventually. Event marketing, a lot of companies are going back to event marketing after COVID. So this is going back. Account managers in, old school marketing also works, and sales, of course, that's always works. That's always needed. All these backgrounds are good because you can always tie what you learn in all of these topics to marketing, or to at least one or two aspects of digital marketing. And of course, there are more, but this is usually what you see in job descriptions. And another, I think, hard truth for a lot of people that I used to talk with is that you need a portfolio, because, you need to demonstrate that you can market something. And if you cannot even market yourself, your CV is one thing, but usually people think that a portfolio is for designers or for programmers or for people who are, I don't know, want to get some investors interested in their ideas. But eventually, if you want to stand out, you need to prove that regardless of the language barrier, regardless of the experience gap, maybe regardless of the industry that you used to work with, or regardless of, if you used to work for an old school marketing type of business, you still can do something that is relevant for your next job. And usually what I recommend to people is to invest the time that they're, the same amount of time that they're investing in writing their CVs and polishing their CVs, to creating some kind of portfolio. It can be just a PDF, it can be a website, it can be, I don't know, a very nice document with images of the content that you created or that you helped to produce, or links to live pages if they are still online. Anything that you can take a screenshot of or link that you can collect in a nice way and show, this is what I've done, this is what I know how to do, or this is what I contributed to, and my job was just the art direction, my job was the copywriting, my job was the calculation of everything behind the scenes, or just whatever you can do to prove that you already did something. And if you haven't done anything, it will be also your ticket in of getting yourself some experience. You haven't promoted a website before, okay, build a website and try to promote it. Yes, a little bit with your own money, or with your friends' money, or with your parents' money, or whoever has a business that needs some help. Somebody will need some help for free, and you can use that as a study case for yourself and take some screenshots or take some notes or mental notes to know what exactly you can do that you already have done in real life. So I really recommend thinking of some kind of portfolio. And I want to stress this a little bit more, because if you know a little bit of marketing, you need to be the POC, like the for yourself, which means that the proof of concept is on you. You have to prove that this thing works. But here, this thing, the product is you, the service is you. And instead of a landing page, you have a CV on LinkedIn, or instead of a business card, you have some PDF. But you need to market the same in the same way that you would market a product. You need to think of yourself as this product or service. And your competition why this is so much needed is that you have Israelis like me, maybe, with already connections in the industry and friends of friends who work in different companies, and we can message them on WhatsApp, and we don't even need LinkedIn for sometimes. We just say, hey, you know somebody? And they say, yeah, let me contact you. And it's so easy for us, right? You have the competition of Israelis pouring into the market every year, students, people with experience, people without experience that are competing for the same jobs. You have native English speakers that maybe are, they just happen to be native English speakers. They don't want to work as a content writer. They want something technical, but they're also there competing. And you have people with experience with all of these groups, former Olim with experience, native, everybody that already has experience can compete for the same jobs with much more ease. So the proof that you can do it as good as as these groups are is super, super important, because just reading your CV and saying, they worked for a local company that looks like, I don't know, some big company in France, looks legit, but it's not an international company, and maybe it's not, a digital company, or maybe it's not a software company. Yeah, I know it's a big company in France. I recognize the name, but I don't know if they're part of the same digital world. I don't know if it's the same standard of work that I'm looking for. And if somebody else already worked with some bigger name, then you have to get this added benefit of showing that, yes, this local company in France was exactly, as good as it gets, and on the same level of anything else that you can produce outside, or, Argentina or Spain, or who knows, whatever. So, okay, let's take a pause for a second and look at the questions, because I think I'm past the stage of talking about this topic. Which technical works, for example, I will explain in a few minutes. More question. Do you believe digital or physical accessibility can be technical? I don't understand this question. What do you mean digital, physical? There are some companies that are doing web accessibility. That's like their niche and I am, I worked for Wix, and Wix has its own department of web accessibility. I don't know if that's what you mean, but there are some companies who are doing this, but very few, because it's a very small niche. Somebody from Gvahim has told us it's simplified portfolio, not very big. Whatever you think is good for you, but just have something that that you can prove. It doesn't have to be fancy. Medical education. There are some medical startups in Israel. I mean, it's a growing sector. So. And can we get full-time job or part-time? Unfortunately, as far as I see the market, a lot of the jobs are full-time. It's very hard to find part-time jobs unless it's like, I don't know, student positions or very low pay. Yes. Okay. So anybody has a question so far?
Well, I have a question. I mean, I don't feel helpless, but obviously it's like if we talk of digital marketing, it's only like one part, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, coming from from the company, I used to work in the big manufacturing company, and the role that I held was had to do with everything, digital marketing, branding, strategy, and so forth.
Yeah.
So when, for example, I apply for the job here, mostly, even if I go through the interview, the feedback that you get is yet, you're overqualified. If you pick, you overqualified for the job. So yes. They say, why, and this is something which, even at the final stage, like, for example, my last interview, that's what she said. She said, for example, we do need content marketing, but even though you're fully qualified for that, but overall you're overqualified. Yes. So we are we'd rather go for someone who is, who had junior positions before, rather than you who had, overall experience and this, that, and the other. Even
Yes.
though we like you, but we still, we don't, we still
Do you,
think that.
do you know what people usually do? And I also talk about it, and I think in this specific page, they just hide the truth. You just speak whatever you're good at, and you hide everything else that makes you look overqualified. Because
but come on, being an expert, like there is like a chief marketing officer in, they ask you a question and you give them a reply, and I presume they're smart enough to understand that
they are smart enough, but they are culturally biased. That's what I said, that you can work for a major company in your home country, but because they don't recognize it, and or they don't think it's an international brand, or because they don't just value this company experience, they won't value your experience. And I've seen this a lot of times when I was a mentor, like, yeah, they work for big companies in their home country, but nobody cares. It's the truth. Nobody cares because they can't recognize it, and they don't bother going online and checking and seeing, oh, really, that's actually a very big company. It's a very legit company, and they do all these crazy things, but not in my world.
Yeah, that part I did. When you do a CV, I sort of took out a lot of things, simplified it, and I start, getting replies. But once you speak to like your functional, for somebody like from marketing, or somebody who is like a marketing director or chief marketing officer, that's what they see right away, because the way you express things, they ask questions and you obviously answer them, and the way you answer them, you sort of sell yourself in.
It
you
really
can't just say, oh, I don't know.
It really depends on your goals, like what type of job you want to land, and if you want to go a little bit lower and then come up again. And of course, and I think you like in Gvahim, they give you interview prep, because it's all about creating the chemistry and acting the story that will create the chemistry. It's less about the details of exactly what you did, but it's not like this lecture is not about interviews. There's a few tips maybe later, but I understand what you mean. It's just my personal advice is always consider your options. Like, if you want to put in the door, if you want to go in, sometimes you have to start lower. Yeah, it happens. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
I absolutely agree, and I'm ready for it.
Regina had a question, I see.
What about the market for persons with disability? And I'm an architect. I used to work with projects of accessibility, but now I'm working and doing a very big course in digital accessibility. This is why I asked you.
Yeah, so as I said,
all around the world they are doing that, the digital accessibility.
Yeah, so as I said, there are a few, I think there are like one or two startups that are actually, this is the field of the startups trying to make accessibility plug and play for other companies. And bigger companies, big corporations, they actually have departments and teams that are dedicated for that. But then it means that are much harder to access. Like, Google will have an accessibility team, or Amazon or Facebook, or all these big companies, they have enough budgets to allocate and to work on these things, because it's important for them, and it's important for their users, and it's important for their branding and personal and PR, that they're doing whatever they can in this field. I just think it's much harder to get into.
I knew some persons from Israel in conference and Congress. They're working hard. Maybe they are few. I don't know, in accessibility.
Yeah, it's not a field that I know too much about. I just know that
nobody knows.
No, I mean that what I know is that either the big companies have it, or the startups are trying to sell their packages to other companies so they don't have to deal with it. So it's just plug and play. You do this and you're accessible. This is what I know for now. But okay, let me continue and catch more questions later. So a few a few basic tips for this beginning of the journey is that, and also something that I tried myself a few times, and it's really hard, even in Israel, don't try to reinvent your job in the first years. Why? Because you need financial stability. So many Olim think that, you know, like I said before, the startup nation, the promised land, this idea that some agencies or some people market outside of Israel that it's, you know, the dream is accessible to anybody, to anywhere. There's so many offers, there's so many startups, there's so much work, there's so much genius people trying to make money, and everybody's just pouring money into Israel. That's not true, especially now with the recession and inflation. I think it was never true, maybe in the beginning, but it's hard enough because, you know, Israel is an expensive place now, and it's hard enough, you know, to get the job. Sometimes it takes like 6 months to find the right job, and you need your financial stability in order to push through and not give up and not be discouraged until you find the right job for you. So usually people think that, well, I was a lawyer and now I want to be a marketing person, or I was I don't know, I was a salesperson and now I want to be a programmer, because developers and programmers, they get a lot of money. So it takes so much time to do something in your own industry, in your own experience, because it's a new country, it's a new language, it's a new culture, it's a new everything. So it takes so much time just to do this. But if you want to go inside a new country and a new culture and a new, you know, a new world, and also switch your career, I don't recommend it, really. From experience of other people that I talked with, it's better, even if you hate being a lawyer, even if you hate being a salesperson, even if you are a marketer but you think you want to be a developer, like, do what you know. So it's easier to get your first job, even for the first year or two, and then change. And it's usually easier to change within the company, inside the same company, after they already know you, after you already have connections, after they already trust you, and also Israelis that have done these changes, it was much easier for them to make these changes within the company. So they worked for marketing 3 years, and after 3 years they asked, okay, I want to be a developer, or the opposite, or they went from HR to marketing, or it's much easier to do it after you already know the people and the culture, and you have experience and the trust and the help from your managers, than throwing all your past behind and starting something new. I think it's too hard, and it's not financially stable this time. And like I said before, it's okay to start with a boring or technical job just to get the foot in the door, because later the changes and the steps you can take are much easier within a company or between companies, after you already have shown your experience and you proved yourself. And yes, it also has to do with ego, that sometimes the ego will tell you, no, but I know that, you know, they pay more, they should pay me more, and this is very, very, you know, I want to live closer to Tel Aviv, I want to have a good life, I'm already, I don't know, I'm already almost 40 years old, I don't want to go back to this paycheck, I used to be paid much more in my home country. And all these things, I'm not telling you to give up and, you know, sell yourself out, but I'm saying that your ego and your experience sometimes will tell you that some things are impossible because you're already past this stage and you're not willing to do the same things again, or this is boring, or this is too technical, or you are beyond this thing. But sometimes, you know, you need to put the ego aside and really calculate and compare your options, and saying, maybe this first year I have to go back to a lower salary, or this year I have to go back to being a team member and not a team leader, or maybe this year I have to live in Petach Tikva. I don't know, like I can't really live next to Tel Aviv, or whatever your dream is. Sometimes in the first year or two, you have to push it 2 years in the future, just so you can get rolling, just so you can get the momentum starting and find what you need in smaller steps. And yeah, don't believe the salary charts. Usually the salary charts that you can see on Marker, Calcalist, I don't know, all these publications, usually they're higher than it is. They just want to make people change jobs faster and not stick to their grounds. And usually it's much higher than they advertise. So, don't be discouraged. And like I said, don't waste your junior salary living in Tel Aviv center. Even if you're young and you want to experience the Tel Aviv lifestyle, it will burn all your salary. So watch out. And, sometimes it's better to live in an unsexy neighborhood in Ra'anana and commute to Tel Aviv in a train. Now the trains are really good. The trains can take you even up to midnight sometimes. So you don't have to live in Tel Aviv to experience the Tel Aviv lifestyle and still keep your salary, because you never know what's going to happen. Cut downs, recession, so you can save some money. Companies that are, different companies that are doing different type of marketing. These are some examples that you can go into if it's your desire. B2C companies, so direct to consumers: Wix, Payoneer, MyHeritage, Fiverr, Mixtiles, Lightrix, Duda, and Elementor. I actually worked with a few of these. So they're directing their marketing more towards the end user. So the end user of Lightrix app can be in Argentina, can be in France, can be in Japan. It doesn't matter, as long as they choose this market as a goal, they will do it. B2B companies like WalkMe, AppsFlyer, IronSource, all these companies, they will target businesses in those countries. So usually countries that are strong, with strong technology centers like Germany, France, Japan, Australia, South America, of course, all the Nordic countries, they will have marketing efforts directed to those sectors. Gaming, I never worked in the gaming or gambling industry. I have my own opinions about it, but of course, that's exactly like B2C companies. They are directing to the end users, and some countries have these, it's more legal, it's less legal, it's a gray zone, not a gray zone. I don't recommend going into any of the other shady businesses that are sometimes, or used to be, an Israeli, market of all these binary options and Forex and all these things that maybe I think now it's illegal, but sometimes they just operate from Cyprus or Gibraltar. I wouldn't recommend that, but it's also an option. And the agencies, you have also agencies in Israel that are catering startups inside Israel or outside of Israel. It's always optional. Let me look at the time. We have 11 more slides. So we'll do this much quicker because you asked. What are the technical roles that you can go into that I consider more technical? So a PPC manager is the person who is dealing with the advertisements on Google, on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever the industry needs, whatever the company is selling. You're dealing with the Excel sheets and the budgets and the copywriting and changing the ads and comparing and forecasting and balancing the budgets and balancing the ads. And you work on these platforms. So usually whatever you find, if it's a, Google PPC manager or Facebook or Instagram, and Facebook and Instagram usually go together. TikTok now is the new thing. Google and LinkedIn sometimes may go together, depends. Whatever you can find that focuses on these platforms, it will be much easier for you later to either go from an agency to an in-house company or a team lead or horizontal change, because you will be good with the budgets, which is always important. They can trust you with the money. You will know how to work these platforms, and at least one platform. It's very easy to understand the other platforms. You will always be up to date with the market needs. So it's more about the technical balancing of numbers, eventually conversion rates, but it's very, very useful and it's very in demand. Community manager. So this is more about, being the people person, and engaging the community of the product And a lot of the products have communities in South America or Spain or in Brazil or in Portugal or France or Japan or all these places that, you know, they have an active community of users in a certain language. And if you know this language and you are creative and you can write in this language and you can engage people with activities and you have some technical knowledge and you can be this kind of person who is supporting the brand and knowing about the product, but can also give some easy customer support tips inside, let's say, Facebook when they ask questions, and you can promote the events and you can be this person who organizes other people. That's an option. I don't think there's a lot of career path here. Usually it's easier to go from community manager to social media manager. They're quite similar, but I think, you know, maybe it's a good thing to start, but of course you need to consider what your next step is.
I'm sorry, can you just one slide back? Just
Yeah.
Not account manager. Yeah, not before the community manager, PPC manager. Yes. I was just gonna ask, you know, what is the career path for that? You go to the project manager or what is?
No, so this is usually you can start in an agency doing it for different clients. Then you have experience and trust, and you can say, you know what, I can handle bigger budgets, but inside only one client. And then there's always a team lead that manages, okay, I'm a team lead and I manage one person who is doing Google, one person who's doing Facebook, one person who's doing LinkedIn. So I am managing different platforms, but not myself. Okay. And usually, like culture-wise and startups and all these companies, if you know how to handle the money well, and if you know how to invest the money, you're a very trustworthy person. So if you're a trustworthy person, it's easier to do a horizontal change to manage other teams and to measure other aspects of the business because they trust you with the money.
Okay.
But it will take a few years, of course.
No,
okay, affiliate manager is the one who's helping the company and other marketers make more money for the company. The affiliate gets a percentage or compensation, right? The company gets more leads or more sales or more users. But it's not just technical as a PPC manager who's only balancing the numbers and conversion rates, because you might need some negotiation skills to negotiate deals with these affiliates. Some affiliates are so big that they don't care about the product; they just want it, you know. And some affiliates are like, they will ask more money out of you because they're putting in effort and they're risking something that they can work with a competitor of yours. So you have to negotiate these deals. So it's a little bit much more on a, you know, legal lawyer experience kind of stuff to negotiate these deals and to make sure that the numbers are balanced, but they're not so much in your technical hands-on control because somebody else is doing the marketing on that side and you have to work with them. And as far as I understand and know, the usual career path is either switching to PPC because it's very similar with the numbers game, or going into a more strategic partnership side that is much more grand scale. If it's a bigger company, like dealing with another brand, partnership with another company who's complementing, or with a sports team, or with a, you know, whatever. So this is more like making business kind of role. It's less about doing Excel all day. But of course, you don't need native English for that. An account manager is the person who is carrying, you know, for other clients. He's the front person of the company in front of other clients. And it doesn't matter what the client's needs because each agency has different roles. So they can be a PPC agency, they can be a design agency, they can be a website design agency. Whatever the agency is producing for the clients, you are the person who's taking the tasks and the comments and working with the designers and the writers and the developers or whatever to implement the needs and to present it to the client. So you work with all of these people in order to get the final product back to the client. You know, hopefully it's a happy client, and then the people skills the schmoozing, and your ego has to be in a place where you can do all these things without being burned, without being burned from the demands of all of these clients. Some of them can be nice, some of them can be not nice, some of them can be very hard on the deadline, some of them very pushy and obnoxious, depends on who you work for. But this is to be more like a multitasker and making sure that everything else moves. Again, you don't need native English because you will have your writers team. You just have to communicate everything between all the pieces. The marketing or business analyst, this I think is the most technical thing, because this will be actually working with only numbers and only Excel sheets and only graphs. But there's a high demand for this. So if you are good with this, and if you're if your insights can be tied to numbers and business, there's a lot of demand for that. And there's also some courses you can take. I have no experience of what the career path is. Unfortunately, I just worked with them, but I never was a business analyst or marketing analyst. So I leave it to you to find out. How much time we have? Okay, do it very fast. The SEO manager is more technical, but from coding perspective, like the HTML code and stuff like that perspective, working with the numbers that you cannot control, working with the spiritual side of Google, understanding how Google works and how to develop the content so Google will like it. You still work with designers, developers, and analysts and all the technical stuff, but you don't have to write the content yourself. You just have to package everything in the way that the search engine will promote it with all the links and all the right tags and all the technical stuff that is needed. My favorite job is the email marketing and automation manager, because this job has a little bit of everything. A little bit of design, a little bit of HTML, a little bit of A/B testing and analysis and reports and logic, a lot of logic, how to understand how everything works. And usually the automation also holds the aspect of working with apps and push notifications. So it's not just emails. You still work with all of the same people, the analysts, the developers, the designers, the writers. And I like it. I really like it. So that's the field I know most about. Yeah. CRM manager is usually similar, is usually very tied to the automation, because you use the same platforms, but you use it in a different way. You use it to understand how to use emails and push notifications and all these advertising tools to get the audience what it needs to progress in the product and to pay more or to come back for another session, and to understand the audience in a way that you know what makes them move and tick, and optimize all the funnels. Yeah, you will see this presentation later, so you can read everything in detail, but it's more of a management, managing the user journey, the buyer's journey, and not actually being necessarily hands-on inside the platform, although you use the same platform as the automation manager. Social media manager, I don't think we can, we should say so much. Everybody knows what social media is and how to engage with, activities and polls and answering bad comments, and working with other teams, the event marketing team and the product and everybody else, just to make sure that the brand and the product is visible on social media and gets as much engagement as needed. Content writer, some big companies, when they do localizations and translations, of course, they will need content writers in Russian, in French, in Spanish, in German, whatever the market is. So, of course, there will be jobs like this, but sometimes these companies will just hire freelancers from that countries, or they will have teams in those countries already doing it. So it's less, there's less offer. And these are some links of where you can learn those skills that I know of and that I research that are good, Master School, they have a business analyst course, social media marketing, digital marketing, you have in New Media College, and you have Google AdWords, PPC manager courses on these ones. You can get the presentation later so you can have the links or just screenshot for yourself. Some places to find jobs in Israel that you can use later. And I want to come back to say what I said before. You need to prove your experience in the real world, in the online world. Doesn't matter what experience you had before, you need to to prove it again and again and again until you find your job. Business BA or MA in marketing doesn't impress people. Like I said before, big companies in countries that they don't know and they don't manage and they don't care to Google and see, it doesn't impress them because it's very general or it's very specific, and for them, they don't recognize it. They don't care, unfortunately, right? But it's the truth. So you need some tool, portfolio, or experience, or something to share what you can do and show them, demonstrate it, so they believe it's true. And you also have to compete with Israeli students that are pouring into the market. They have connections and chutzpah to try maybe what you'd think it's unacceptable or jumping too high, or putting the ego aside. A lot of Israelis with the different cultural background will just try and they will land this job because they're, eager enough to try something, even if they don't have the experience that you have. They just have connections. So they will try as much as they can to call in people. And, you have to push it as hard as they can. There is a good question here, just before I move on to the last slide, that Gleb asked, is there a thing called content manager? So it's a good...
Also another question that I think it was very professional.
What if I don't have access to marketing project?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, like I said, you find somebody that your parents' friend, a colleague, a friend from high school, I don't know, somebody that has a business, somebody that has a startup, somebody that has a local shop, somebody who is accountant. I don't know. Somebody will have, somebody will have a need for a person that will do the PPC for them, or that create a new web page for them, or that will do a presentation for them, or that they create some kind of landing page, whatever they need. My former mentee from Gvahim, her dad was an accountant and his website was really old. She didn't want to build website, but she had to build him a new website so she could prove that she can do PPC for him. So she said, yeah, I can do the advertisement for him. It was in Swedish, actually, but I'm not going to send the people to this old website. So she already created his website again, and he gave her a very small budget, but it was real, So you can ask your neighbor, you can ask a friend of a friend, whatever you find, even if it's a dog sitter, even if it's a grocery store, whatever they need, you can find somebody who will let you do it for free because it's free. And then you will have a real life scenario that you actually worked on. And when they ask you questions, what is your experience? You tell them, well, I did this and this. And, I know I learned my lessons about this and this, and I understand the difficulties because this and this, and I had these dilemmas and this. You know what you're talking about because you actually did it in real life. Even if your budget was 50 shekels a day, you still touched it, you touched in real life. So this is the portfolio, you can open your laptop and show them, this is what I did. But there was the good question from Gleb was content manager. So content manager in this scenario, a person who deals with different forms of marketing content like photos, video, text, landing pages. Usually it can be, I think, two things. Either you are an account manager for a client and the client has different needs and the agency that you work for has different freelancers or different people who can provide these services, right? But the person, what I think you mean is more like a marketing director that is, you know, working with different teams and different people, creating a more high-level brand projects or more high-level cross-company things. These won't be usually a junior position. Even if you have this experience in different companies, as I said, it will be much harder to prove yourself and become a director right from the start. So it would usually the path would be doing one of these roles and then advancing to be the team leader that manages all of the other roles, right? So you can be the person who is editing videos and slowly become the head of the department who is doing the videos and the graphics and the designers. And, you know, not all of the companies have these positions, but usually it's a director level kind of role. What I think I forgot to mention and I forgot to say in the presentation is that there is also this gray zone of marketing operation. And a marketing operation role is usually a technical role, but there is no definition because a lot of companies have different tools and different ways that their marketing operation people work. It really depends on what the technology that this company uses and what apps and software this company uses. But basically, it's a technical role, it's a marketing role, it's to go inside the company and to help with the marketing needs, but from a technical standpoint. So, wow, I don't know how even to define it because every company is doing it different, but let's say somebody will produce the content and do all the hard work of the copywriting and design and blah, blah, blah. But eventually the technical implementation inside the platform will be the marketing ops. Or somebody will have to manage the Monday board of the company, marketing ops. Somebody will have to, I don't know, create new dashboards for the company, but it will be the marketing ops working with the analysts. But it's very, very fluid. So if you're seeing marketing ops jobs, you need to read the description and understand what it really means, but I forgot to put it in the slide because it's so vague. I'm pretty sure you already know this, but I'm just repeating in the sake of people who didn't take the program yet. Create a different CV for each role type. You know, if you think you can be good at this job or at this job, so create a totally different CV for social media manager and create a totally different CV for PPC manager and send them separately, you know. Emphasize the relevant positive aspect of each previous role. So if you're overqualified, emphasize only the part that you want to focus on this role. Don't mention everything else you did, you know. Just land this specific job. They will find out that you're much more than that. They will be happy. They will promote you later. Or if you've done old school marketing and you only did one email in your life, focus on that one email and forget, you know, don't mention too much about the old school stuff if it's not relevant for that specific role. Practice interviews. Yeah, you know, you understand. And Gvahim works on that with you also, but I think interviews are much more about chemistry with the person than the actual details, and the way you tell your story is much more important than the details. And of course, you cannot control all the people who interview you, and you can't be charming to everybody like dating. You can't really be attractive to anybody like in the real world. But this is what I would focus on, how to tell the story in a way that is engaging and create chemistry. And think of your CV as a product, you know, that is structured well, designed well, not too long, very specific. And make sure it's packaged in a nice way and not in a boring way. I don't know about salaries. I'm a freelancer now, so I don't know too much about junior salaries. It's been a lot like almost 9 years, so I can answer that.
I will answer a little bit. First of all, we at Gvahim actually guide you. So those of you who did the Gvahim program, you probably know. Those who did not do Gvahim, we will be happy to have you. If you are in Israel, we have the Israeli program, the Gvahim Career Center. You got the link to the Gvahim Academy, but this is more for the pre-Aliyah, as this was actually, as this lecture is also for people before they make Aliyah, so they know actually Moran guidance. I believe for people before making Aliyah, if you understand that some of the skills you miss and you want to take Moran advices, then maybe you would take a course and you will start to implement Moran advices. So when you arrive to Israel, it will be much quicker to find a job. And if you are in Israel, it just, you have to do it now and not before you made Aliyah. And as I said about salaries, we have Gvahim can guide with this. In general, it's in a way, I'm going to say something. I usually tell people, look at 5 salary surveys. In marketing, you have a lot of professions, and the salary surveys are also divided to the different profession. So each one of you take the profession that you believe you have best chances of actually getting the job. That means you have the majority of the skills to do the job in the new world, as Moran presented it. And then I will do an average, and then I will, as Moran said, yes, they tend to actually give nicer numbers sometimes than reality. So I would deduct I don't know, 5%, I think, and then it will give you more realistic estimation of what will be your salary. But this is usually what I do. I don't remember numbers. I just go and watch at several salary surveys. The more you have, the average will be more accurate. So
Yeah,
my
but also
contribution.
also now with the economy situation and a lot of companies are laying off people, so I bet sometimes they will say, well, this is what we can give, because they will use this as an excuse also to give lower salaries, and because they know people will need them better than not having a job at all. So at least for the next 1 or 2 years, it's going to be a little bit rough, I presume. But still possible. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Many marketing positions require experience in tech companies or experience with SaaS products. Maybe you can recommend some courses in Israel if there are some, maybe, no, I mean courses with related to digital marketing with
yeah, so it's in
SaaS products, for example.
It's inside the slides. It's inside you have some links over there. The fact that I don't know if it's a fact, but the reality is that you can take, there's so many online courses, right, for these things that you can take. Free online courses or Udemy or much more expensive ones. You will have the understanding when you take this course, or even books. You can also read books about product-led growth and SaaS companies and product marketing and how it works. I don't think people will be impressed, because yes, you will understand what they want, and you will talk with the same terminology, and you will swim in the same waters. But then everybody can take a course. Everybody can read a book. So I think you need to find the angle or the job that matches your experience, rather than saying, I have an experience with SaaS companies. It's very, very broad. It's very, very general. But if you can find a role that will match your experience and what you can do, even if it's not a SaaS company, like an agency, or like a gaming, or it's not, the SaaS is not important, because what will be important is that you find a job in marketing, and then after 2 years, much easier to go inside a SaaS company if that's what you want. I don't I don't know if there's so many courses or if there's any course that people will say, wow, you know, you've went through this course or you probably know what you're doing. Because eventually it's an online certification. Nobody can really understand what it's worth. And Israel has a lot of different industries other than SaaS companies. You have medical, you have cyber, you have gaming, you have agencies. There's so many other options in marketing than just SaaS.
And one more question.
Yeah.
You recommended to start from agency for many roles, but if agency really want to hire people without Hebrew, always basic language.
No, so I don't recommend agency. I just put it in the line of progression. Like usually the step from agency to in-house is easier than going directly into in-house, but it's not specifically my recommendation. It's just the way it works sometimes. And that's why I also listed a lot of agencies that are not specifically for Hebrew speakers, and they don't target Israeli companies that are, you know, Israeli market. A lot of companies are not even targeting, you know, Hebrew speaking companies. So try to focus on those instead of agencies that are only catering Israeli clients that has Israeli, you know, client markets. There's not a lot, but there is. Somebody asked, how relevant is a European degree? Like I said, a lot of people have a BA or MA in marketing, but in Israeli eyes, it's very, very general. It doesn't mean experience. It just means knowledge. And knowledge is, yeah, you can go on Udemy and study a lot, but you don't have experience. So it doesn't declare the value of your knowledge, the level of your knowledge, just said that you have it. So internship opportunities, I don't know. I never took internships. I'm not sure.
I want to add, from time to time, we have in Gvahim collaboration with small companies, startups. This is something unique that Maya created. And sometimes they say, like, we have an opportunity if somebody wants to volunteer. They don't have money, because Moran said very, very wisely, find a project. And sometimes it's not easy to find a project. So we understand this in Gvahim. And for our alumni, if somebody we know that somebody needs a project, and we connect them. This is, of course, for people who are here in Israel and are doing the Israeli program. So this is relevant, less relevant for Aliyah Prep alumni who are not in Israel now. If you already arrived to Israel, then we can connect you with startup companies. But this is, of course, we do only to our alumni. And then you can gain experience. And this is a very valuable experience. Any experience is important, as the experience that Moran described is very important. It's better than nothing. But maybe you can do something as a project for your father or mother or sister or friend, and also do for a real company. Okay. Now, of course, this is much more valuable. And now you will have two projects to talk about in your interview, and this will make even better impression. So this is the way we were able. It's not all the time we have it, because not all the time companies need people, but small companies who don't have money that we have connection with, they approach us and they tell us that, like, they have a project and if we can help them find a volunteer.
There are some, I know of like maybe 2 stories of people who really, really wanted to work for a specific companies, and they created the whole dedicated campaign just to target the HR or the manager of that company because they really like the idea, the company, the product or whatever. And they how you call it? It's like they created a whole landing page or a whole website or a mock-up of what they think this company should do, or what would they do if they were in the shoes of that person, or how they would. It's like it was very, very targeted, but it was, you know, if you can really get attention like this. So instead of sending a CV, you send the whole website. Suddenly it's like, wow, this person really understands us and what we need, and they really have some skills, and it really worked for a few people. Like, I think 2 people I know that actually got a job like this, because the manager was so impressed. But then, yeah, you have to put a lot of effort into one specific job.
So you think the academic experience that I have a lot, the master and doctors, this is not relevant to emphasize.
It depends on the job, right? But
Yeah.
usually people value experience much more. If you are in a managerial position and you have an MA, yeah, of course. Sometimes it's a requirement. Sometimes it's you have to pass this requirement for certain jobs, but it will be stated in the job description, right? A lot of the other job descriptions, they don't, usually it's just a BA, something related or very general. Again, it really depends on what you're trying to find. The programmers, they don't need BA or MAs, right? They just need to be good programmers. If you have a degree in computer science, it's usually only for a specific type of programming that is very high level. If you want to work with machine learning, AI, data science, then yes, you need this background. But if you just want to be coding where, apps and web pages and stuff like that, usually you don't need a degree.
Yes, I understand. Too many years studying for PhD, and I feel this.
No, so sometimes, startups that they really have like a genuine new patented idea, or all these things that are, of course, they need people with a very, very, very deep understanding that they build the product around that understanding. But then it's much more hard to find, or you need to create it your own, or, As I said, sometimes for the first year or 2, you have to compromise. Like even Israelis, sometimes you move from an agency to the in-house, and the in-house is telling you, well, yeah, you can move in-house, but you don't have so much experience, so the salary won't be high enough. And you think, wow, I made all this effort just for 1,000 shekels more. But sometimes that's the compromise you have to do, because it's going to be worthwhile in the long term.
Yes, I understand. We've been doing an accessibility guide in the city of Rio. It was for iPhones and smartphones, but we needed to have a person who understood better than us. So
maybe your specific path is to be a consultant. Maybe you don't have to work in the Israeli market. Maybe you live in Israel, but you consult other companies, in Europe or whatever, as a freelance consultant. I don't know. If your job, this experience is so specific, and you already have connections and business connections elsewhere, hey, that's also a possibility.
So
a pleasure.
I want to thank you very, very much for your presentation. Yeah. So if you want to say also a few words, this is the time.
No, I mean, everybody has difficulties, connections, mentality, culture. Some people are just introverts. It can be difficult for Israelis. It can be difficult for Americans. Everybody has their strong points and low points, and you just have to consider what position you're coming from, what you really want, how you can put your career path in terms of a few years ahead, and not everything has to be now. You know, some patience, some creativity, some chutzpah. it works. It's a conversion rate, right? It's like dating. That's what I like to think about. You date, I don't know, 20 women, eventually one of them you get married, right? You only need one out of 20. So you send 100 CVs, you only need one job.
Yeah.
You just have to be patient to send more and more and more. And sometimes it takes 6 months. It took me 6 months sometimes between jobs in Israel, with experience, with Hebrew, with connections. It took me 6 months to find the right job for me. So if you don't give up, and if you consider your steps correctly, and you know, take acknowledgement of the economy and the needs and the industries and whatever Israel has to offer, you will find a way eventually. Just, you know, be smart.
And we are here for you.
Yes.
So I wish you all a lot of success. And again, thank you, Moran, very, very much.
Good luck.
And and we will continue to be in contact. And thank you, everyone.